Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal EMac coming to you with one Terry McBride. That's T McB as we get ready for Tuesday, September 8th, baseball. I'm on the road. The sound quality here may not be the best. Terry, I sprung for the expensive Wi-Fi, the upgrade, but then it just didn't work. It said I wouldn't connect to it. So it was me and technology battling on the road, of course.
Of course. That's just par for the course for you. Whether you're home, whether you're on the road, it seems like the technology gets on top of you a little bit. But hey, I can see you, I can hear you. It seems like we're recording, so rock and roll. We got this.
Yeah, I'm using I brought the mic, the Blue Yeti's with me, brought my second monitor. I've got my other camera, but this is just the built-in. I didn't want too many things plugged in at the moment because since I wasn't sure how well the Wi-Fi was going to be carrying this show. We will see. I think I'm actually on air tomorrow. So fortunately, I'm not producing. I've done shows from down here for the last 7 or 8 years, so I know it works. It's just that if I was the one running OBS on my computer, we'd have big problems.
Well, if you need me to jump in somehow and do what I can, I don't produce. I don't know how to do it, but I'm happy to try. So if something goes haywire tomorrow, I'll be here.
All right. Well, yeah, you would just have to be an on-air talent. I think you've got that down. You far surpassed me with your analysis. So there we are.
Oh, please.
All right. We've got slates all over the place. There are 3 doubleheaders. The one that I kept I kept counting and getting 18 games or whatever, but I couldn't figure out what the third doubleheader was because I kept looking for a duplicated team and I only found 2. It's because Oakland and Houston are reversing who the home team is for one of them. I don't think they're flying from Oakland to Houston for these games.
That would be very Major League Baseball of them to do that, though, and to make that happen.
Yeah, I think this is more like Toronto, you're the home team, even though this game is in Washington, D.C. before they went to Buffalo. So, yeah, it was just, who knows on this one. But, hey, it's 2020. But we've got the games. We've got the matchups. We'll go through each of these. We're going to kind of use DK as our guideline. We're more worried about talking about the pitching matchups to help you guys out. And then everything smooths out once we get to the late slate. It's just how are they handling these different things. The other sites have chopped them up a little bit as well. It's just that nobody has them consistently. We'll use that word. But our first set of games, we have a pair on DraftKings. Now, both of these are game ones of the doubleheader, so they make it very easy for us. They're both 7-inning games. We've got the Houston one, and Oakland is going to float around there a little bit. But in this matchup, we got to play 4 of these pitchers. We've got Jose Berrios, we've got Zach Eflin, we've got Martin Perez. And then I believe coming off the injured list is Carlos Martinez. Is that what you have as well? He was been dealing with COVID, so.
Yeah, that is what I have. That it's Martinez coming back from from COVID, and not sure. I didn't have Eflin. I had Martin Perez, and looks like Ryan Yarbrough was my next guy there. But that
Eflin for the Phil.
I might have just missed him. I might have just missed him when I was putting these notes together. Yeah, because that's
Yarbrough he's in the next set of games.
Yeah. So I might have missed Eflin there as I was putting this together. He might not have been listed yet, but overall, I mean, out of those guys, I think it's pretty clear that Jose Berrios is by far the best pitcher.
I should also say this: all the sites are in disagreement because I've got Dobnak and Ponce de Leon on another site here. Now, again, these matchups are going to be the same. So we're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about the pitching. So we're going to cover everybody. We're not worried about that. But just in case you guys see this, we're doing this the night before. There's no consistency across MLB.com, DraftKings, 2 other fantasy sites, and baseball Fangraphs, as I'm looking at it. Thanks, guys. So just know, let's focus on pitcher versus team. That's not going to change, I hope.
Yeah, so
back to you, Terry.
I think we can definitely call Berrios the best overall pitcher just in a vacuum on this little weird slate of ours. Going up against the Cards, it's a pretty good spot too. Cards are 27th in baseball with a 142 ISO against right-handed pitching this year. The WRC plus is right around league average at a 102, so 2% above. 22.1% strikeout rate, 11% walks, so not too bad as far as drawing the walk and limiting the strikeout. But I think Berrios is in line for a pretty decent start here. Draws 44.1% grounders. His career's 40.9, so it's up a little bit this year. Using his sinker 23% of the time. Gets good whiff on his change that he uses mostly to lefties. Overall, 23.3% strikeout rate for his career, 7.9% walk rate. 25.8% strikeout this year. The walks are up a little bit this year, but I think he can handle this Cards lineup. There's not a ton to really worry about there. So I think we can play him. Martinez, I don't know what kind of leash we'd be getting. Coming back from COVID doesn't sound like it's somebody who's going to be pitching very much.
No, and he's only made one start because he on July 28th, and then he missed the whole chunk of the season that St. Louis missed, but he was one of the guys who was sick that caused them to miss those. So yeah, it's tough to know. I'd be shocked with more than 50 pitches, 5-0.
Yeah, and then just looking back, it's 2019 we don't actually have that much data on him. It doesn't look like, but overall for his career, he's 23.3% strikeout rate. He did limit the long ball over time, but this Twins lineup is pretty good. 191 ISO versus right-handed pitching this year, 104% WRC plus, so a little over league average WRC plus. But they're going to get into this Cards bullpen pretty early on. I think we can get to the Twins bats a little bit, and I really wouldn't roll out too much Martinez. I don't have the price on this weird little slate in front of me for DK. So if you have that, if it's an exceptionally low price, maybe we can justify it and get away with it.
No, he's 8,000 even, so it's just not really worth it. And so I'm trying to look and see who might be their next guy in, but I don't know. Ponce de Leon, so we'll talk about him here because they could use him as a starter. They could use him after Martinez. We don't know. He's coming up from the alternate site. He's one of the guys that they've had up 2 or 3 different times. He's made 5 total appearances. His last one was on the 28th of August. So he has gone 41, 93 pitches back on the August 23rd, 79 on the 18th, and 29 on the July 29th he went 85. So we know he's most likely stretched out in that 80 or so pitch range. Even when he's been at the alternate site, that seems to be reasonable. So he could be the standalone starter, or we could see them say, hey, you go after Martinez and we're going to start player not yet named Monday night in the evening game of the doubleheader. So we don't know about that. But if we're going to talk Ponce de Leon, he's not been great. 7.82 ERA, averaging almost 2 base runners per inning. He's given up one home run in each of his last 4 starts. It's the walks that have been getting him 4, 4, 3, and 3. That's more than 1 per inning pitched. It's pretty dicey. So even if he's the guy that's on this slate, he's 7,400. At least you're going to get some pitches from him. It may not be what you like, though. We're hoping he survives. He has had 3 of his last 4 outings have been positive fantasy points. That's what we're left measuring.
Man, 2020 is weird when that's the one thing we can hang our hat on. But the kid does have a good strikeout rate over time. In his minor league career, he was trending towards high 20s, I believe, last I saw it. So he is a kid who can sit guys down, but he walks way too many hitters, and that's just who he is. You mentioned that. So that's right on trend for him. So, yeah, dicey play. If you know for sure that he's going, then maybe. If he's one of those guys where he might be the next guy up out of the bullpen, I think that's way too much to pay for him.
All right, the next 2 are the Boston and Philly game. It looks like we have more consensus on this one. It will most likely in this set of games be Zach Eflin and Martin Perez, 74 and 6,800. Here's your reasonable price points. Martin Perez, I always like to point out, doesn't get blown up nearly as often as everybody thinks he does, because it's true. He really doesn't. Reasonable ground ball rate, allows home runs, but there's usually no base runners on. Doesn't get a ton of strikeouts, relies a little bit more on the ground ball, just kind of an innings eater. Double plays tend to save him. Eflin's been having a nice little year thus far. I've been saying bad things about him. I may have to walk some of those back, but not too many of them. Another adequate pitcher going against Boston. This is a watered down Boston lineup, but it's not what we're used to seeing from them. Any highlights you want to hit from either of these guys?
You nailed it with Eflin. He's. I was just looking at his Statcast page. Like I said, I didn't have him in my notes by accident there, but yeah, it's actually surprising. I wasn't really on my radar that he's been pitching this well, but he's also a bigger dude than I realized. 6'6", 220. I didn't know that. But yeah, in general, he's 6 starts this year, 32 innings, 42 strikeouts, 127 WHIP. So he's putting some guys on base, but not anything you really have to be concerned with. And then the Statcast is all very good. 76 percentile in exit velo, 76 in hard hit rate. He's 89th percentile in xWOBA, 83rd in the strikeout rate this year. Only 23rd percentile in whiff, so he's getting some strikeouts without getting a ton of swing and miss on it. But just scrolling down, he's throwing a sinker 55% of the time, so a lot of sinker usage here. And then that's setting up some of his breaking stuff. So he's getting pretty good whiff on his curveball. So it could be a decent spot for him. That surprised me a little bit. And then on the other side with Perez, you mentioned he doesn't get blown up a lot, and he's a guy that I talk about a lot about going after. But you're right; he's especially this year he's been burning me a little bit on that. But the matchup, the Phillies just smoke lefties. 241 ISO is second in the league so far this year. 123 WRC plus. They only strike out 20.5% of the time. So I think it's a pitcher once again that I want to attack with some bats.
All right, and then the alternative potential instead of Eflin could be Vincent Velasquez. He's going to start one of the games. They're saying he was moved to the bullpen. He did pitch 90 pitches back on August 20th. He has made one appearance since then. It was on August 30th where he threw 36 pitches. He's probably good for 60, 65 pitches when he's coming in. The hesitation in my voice is he allows too many home runs. He just has never developed on the talent that we saw him come up with, and the bona fides never turned into reality. He started out with some nice strikeout upside, but it just went downhill, just major regression. It's kind of like Fultonevich, in my opinion. Started out well and then just imploded.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. He's never really been a guy that I trust. He's a guy that sometimes you see pop up in DFS discussions and in projections, but not somebody I really want any part of. He's made 3 starts this season, sitting 5th percentile in exit velo allowed, 1st percentile in hard hit rate allowed, striking out some guys like you mentioned, but he just allows a ton of hard contact. 167 whip so far this year, putting a lot of guys on base. Not somebody I want any part of.
All right, now we're on to the 6 o'clock slate. Again, we're just following along here with what DraftKings is doing. They've got 4 games in this. However, they do have the Oakland-Houston game, which is one of the doubleheader games. So it's a 7-inning game amongst the 3 other games that are here. So we have Tampa Bay at Washington, Kansas City at Cleveland, the second game of the doubleheader, or the first game of the doubleheader for Oakland, Houston, and then you've got New York and Toronto. So we've got some good pitching at least to talk about here. Well, at least from New York and Toronto. And yes, I'm including J.A. Happ as at least a good pitcher by comparison of these other guys we're going to mention. But let's start off with Happ and Tyrone Walker.
Okay. J. Happ as a good pitcher. I want to hear more about that as a Yankees fan because I'd like to meet that guy.
Well, revenge, right? Because he was with Toronto at some point after Seattle, I think.
Good little chunk of his career there. So, no, I'm just joking around a little bit. I do actually get a pretty good projection on Happ. It's surprising for me, and I worry about the Blue Jays. They've got some pop against lefty pitchers. Only a 171 ISO, but a 109 WRC plus. So they're above average creating runs. We saw them go off against the lefty today. And Happ just allows a lot of home runs and a lot of power the last 2 years. 190 home run per 9 in 2019, 180 so far this year. He's pitching for innings for sure, trying to hit a innings bonus that's built into his contract. The Yankees have been messing around with how much they're using him and how much they're letting him start because of that. Sitting 22nd percentile in exit velo allowed, 23rd in hard hit rate, 9th percentile in strikeout rate, 17th percentile in whiff, 10th tough spot. I don't know. I don't know how much I really want to get to him. It's 14% strikeout rate this year, 10.8% walk, 5.47 xFIP. Dicey. I would trust my model and go with some of it at 7,500, but it's a tough ask for me.
All right, and then Tyrone Walker, you've got him coming in for about 90, 95 pitches would be my guess. This will be his third start since coming over to Toronto from Seattle. 81, 92, 106, 98 were his last 4 games. Just he throws hard, he gets hit hard. That's the book on him.
Yeah, and he's started throwing a cutter. He's got a cutter that he's using 22% of the time. So he was throwing it previously, but only like 8% of the time. And we've seen a lot of guys start working with that pitch, and it's made a lot of difference, particularly some of the guys who were out in Seattle. So that's made a difference for him. He's mixing it in with an 11% usage sinker, 18.7% splitter that he uses as his off-speed pitch, and it helps him generate some whiff on those pitches. So it's made him into a better overall pitcher. But still 4.80 xFIP in his 38 and 2/3 innings so far this year. Overall for his career, 21.3% strikeout rate, 7.4% walks. This year he's sitting 20.6, 7.5. So right around his career average with that, 4.79 xFIP. The one big thing he's got going for him, and I know they scored some runs today, but the Yankees just kind of suck lately. They've been bad. So against this pitcher, I would probably in a vacuum tend to lean more toward the Yankees bats, but these aren't the Yankees bats that, the typical explosive offense. So I think you can get some Walker in your life. The price, 8,500 on FanDuel, a little bit of a big ask. What's his price on DK?
It is 7,600.
76. So I like it better over there than on the one pitcher site for sure. A little weird 4-game slate, so, and dealing with one game that's at 7 innings. So I think you can get some of them in your life on over on DK.
All right, let's talk about that 7-inning game. Frankie Montas got pushed back. Chris Bassett replaced him on Monday. I'm not interested in Montas. However, I am interested in Zach Greinke. A 7-inning game has the potential for a complete game bonus, especially from someone like Zach Greinke. Now, he's only gone 7 innings, once in his last 4 starts, but he went 6, 5, 6, and 8. That's 104, 96, 106, 97, 94 pitches. So if anybody can get a 7-inning complete game shutout, he's going to be one of the guys on the short list. I'm okay with him. He is 9,800, but I don't want to look away from it. Montas, I want to look away.
I think that's fair. I think that makes sense. I think it's a good call on your part as far as the opportunity to get to that complete game. 7 innings would probably not be much of a problem, and he's also got the upside of strikeouts in this game. A's strike out 25.9% of the time against righties, so that should help him out a little bit. He's been really getting by on guile, and I'm not sure what else this year. 46 and a third innings, 3.77 xFIP, just making things work despite only bringing it at 87 miles an hour now on his fastball. His fastball is what his changeup used to be as far as velocity goes, so he doesn't throw the change like at all anymore. But he's throwing 21% sinker 2-seamer that's working well for him. The change used to be a 21% pitch and just not throwing it at all. But like I said, he's only 82nd percentile in exit velo, 76th in hard hit rate, 61st percentile in xWOBA. So he's making things work for him. Only 57th percentile in K rate, in strikeout rate, and 53rd in whiff, but that's workable here. I think we could get a very good start out of Greinke. So I think he's worth it on both sides. I think he's worth the money.
All right, moving on to the next game. Again, skip Montas, but Tristan McKenzie is going for Cleveland against Kansas City. We've gone to McKenzie a couple times. He is throwing 81, 84, and 80 pitches. He's had 6, 3, and 10 strikeouts in those. Now, that 10 strikeout game was his first appearance against Detroit. I don't think we're going to see that again, but I still think a strikeout per inning is in play, and I think he can get 5 or 6 innings against Kansas City. So I like him. Not really a fan of Jake Junis. You know, I mentioned him. He's only given up, home runs so far this year in 16 innings. But if we go back to the beginning of 2018, he's one of the guys in the top 10. So he doesn't put a lot of base runners on base, but he allows a lot of solo shots. Kind of a 6,500 puts him in play a little bit just for some differentiation, but we hope he survives. For me, it's going to be McKenzie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd be much more inclined to lean into McKenzie here. I do think he's got significant strikeout upside. 33% strikeouts over his first 16 innings in the show. You mentioned the exact numbers there. Just excellent stuff. Give up a tiny bit of hard contact. Give up a home run on a changeup and a fastball, but just overall, he's getting great whiff on his breaking stuff. Tremendous slider to right-handed hitters. So I really like the upside for the kid to put up a dynamite start. The Royals are 159 ISO against right-handed hitting or right-handed pitching, and 16% below average in WRC plus. Not that much of a threat for him here, so I definitely think he can dominate this lineup. Assuming he gets a full stretched out start, I like the upside.
Yeah, and you've got, God, look at poor Kansas City. Maikel Franco, who was kind of an afterthought. Remember, he was like batting 7th or 8th. He was batting 3rd on Monday night.
Yeah,
things have changed. And my guy, Brad Keller, he of the 106 career isolated power, did not give up a single extra base hit. Had 1 walk, but still gave up 5 runs. He got bitch slapped by sequencing. He gave up 8 hits, but they were all singles.
Oh God.
He's given up 22 home runs against 1,400 career at bats. It's like 907 lefties, or probably 709 lefties, and like 667 righties or something like that. It's almost like split down the middle. 11 home runs to each side of the plate. That's it. He literally does not allow power.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I talked about him yesterday.
1 double allowed this year. 1 double. That's it.
Yeah, I talked about him on 3 shows yesterday, and I wrote about him. I mentioned him in a column that I wrote. So that's hilarious. Of course, he gave up 5 runs. I even said that to Laffy today. I said that he would give up 3 home runs, but that's of course that he gave up five runs without allowing a homer. That's hilarious. Jake Junis is not that guy. I think we can target the Indians here. Just to transition back to this slate, like you were saying, he gives up some power. 177 career home run per 9 to right-handed hitting. So I think he can get to the Indians. Only a 146 ISO for the Indians against righty pitching this year. 91 WRC plus, and striking out 24.3% of the time going into tonight. So the numbers aren't what you would expect from an offense that we talk about a decent amount for DFS purposes. But I still like the spot against a pitcher that I don't think is all that good. Doesn't really get much whiff on anything, a little bit on the slider, but then he allows a ton of power on the slider when he hangs it. So I think the Indians can get to this pitcher.
All right, for Tampa Bay, we should have Ryan Yarbrough. He's coming off the minimum stay on the 10-day injured list. He had a sore groin. That was coming off an 80-pitch outing against Miami. He went 97 pitches the outing before that against Toronto. If we're assuming full health, which I do, and I don't want to say it. Well, let me say this. I don't think Tampa Bay would rush him back. Don't look now, but they're leading the AL East. They have a real shot at going to the playoffs. If he wasn't, and they're up by 2 or 3 games is it the Yankees or?
Yeah, they're up. Several games. I haven't seen it the last couple of days after the Yankees' tragic weekend, but
yeah, and I haven't looked since the weekend either. But I know Boston was double digits back. So this would not be a rush him back. This would be we have a very good chance of making the playoffs if we gave him another 5 days. If he was going to be feeling better, and he's probably going to be one of our playoff pitchers, because who knows what's going on with Charlie Morton. Yeah, so I think if we see him, he's going to be good to go. And I would say be comfortable with 75, 80 pitches against Washington. On the other side, we've got Annabelle Sanchez. Take it away for our last pair.
Yeah, so I think you're right about Yarbs. If we see him out there, I think that means he's probably good to go. The one thing is, he is a guy who's been utilized in that limited innings in the beginning, kind of hybrid opener starter role in the past. So if they wanted to do it with him, it wouldn't be weird to do it with this particular pitcher. But I agree. I think if they're putting him out there, they wouldn't risk it for the playoff upside. Particularly also, just to add on to that point, it's a year where half the league is making the playoffs anyway with the expanded playoffs, right? So they're pretty much a lock to be in. So they're going to want him healthy pitching in the postseason.
Yeah,
So
sorry, I did cut it. They're 5 games ahead of Toronto, 6 ahead of the Yankees, 8 ahead of Baltimore, and 14 ahead of Boston. So there's no reason to rush him back whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that isn't a locked playoff spot already. Then that far ahead, to be quite honest, they would have to lose like all their games the rest of the way to not make the playoffs at this point. So
they're not officially locked, but it says they're 100%. So.
There you go. So if you see Yarbs out there, you can trust he's going to get his normal outing to like 85 pitches, something like EMac said. Annabelle on the other side is he's such a roller coaster of a play for DFS. I've gotten to him and I've won with him before. I've lost more often than I've won with him when I've gotten to him. I think that's probably true for most people out there. He's only allowing 28.8% hard contact this year. But he put it all in medium, 52.4% medium contact. So it's not like he's inducing a tremendous amount of soft contact. 5.60 xFIP in his 33 and a third inning so far this year, allowing a 357 batting average on balls in play against. Over his career, he's at 20.7% strikeout rate, so not a tremendous strikeout pitcher. This year, he's only 15.1% strikeouts, so not really a guy I trust. And I think this Rays lineup is going to be good enough against him. 188 ISO against right-handed pitching, 10th best in the league, 110 WRC plus, also among the league leaders as a team. So 24.3% strikeout rate. It's a good number for Annabelle to go after, but he's not that guy. I don't think he's going to rack up the strikeouts here. And they draw 11% walks against righties. So I think we could see him put on a couple guys and they could cash in on those opportunities. So I think I prefer the Rays stack than the pitcher here.
All right, we're on to our main slate here. We've got full games for everyone. At the top end, we're going to talk about Walker Bueller and Mike Clevenger. Down on the bottom, well, we'll get to them and we'll just go through them quickly. In the middle, we have Dylan Cease going against Pittsburgh, who has not been great by any stretch this year. Wait, am I talking about Cease or am I talking about Pittsburgh? How about a combination of both? Cease has some nice back of the baseball card numbers. His strikeouts, not so nice. 28 in 41 innings. That does not make fantasy goodness happen easily, but he has a 3.3 ERA. On the other side, we've got Joe Musgrove, who we literally never, ever, ever know what to do with. I don't want to tangle with him against the White Sox. However, Musgrove does a decent job of limiting power for the most part. The park's going to help him out. I'm not as excited about the White Sox. I can guarantee I won't be writing about the White Sox in any of my articles on Tuesday. I'm sure they'll be back on Wednesday, though. Don't worry.
Well, maybe you can hop over to one of my columns and hear some stuff about the White Sox tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. I decide those things kind of as I'm typing them and as I'm looking at stuff. But I'm getting some interesting marks on them, but I'll have to poke around because I did put the sheet together in a bit of a hurry today as we were doing our fantasy draft for the site behind the scenes. Getting a good projection on Dylan Cease, despite some of his struggles and despite the limited strikeouts this year. The strikeouts are weird. His calling card is that he's kind of a strikeout pitcher, and people were expecting a lot of projected upside for strikeouts for him. So it's weird to see him only at 15.9%. You mentioned the walks, 11.4% so far this year, 5.86 xFIP. Not a lot to get excited about with some of that stuff, but the kid's got dynamite stuff. And if he can harness it for a night, which is kind of the thing I say about him every time, you could see a pretty good upside start here against what is a terrible offense. For the year, he's been bad. He's allowed a lot of hard contact, 38th percentile in exit velo allowed. He's allowed 23rd percentile in barrels, only 14th percentile in strikeout rate, like EMac mentioned. So it's tricky to recommend him, but the spot is great. The Pirates are dead last in baseball with a 120 ISO against righties, 62 WRC plus, also last in the league. 25.1% strikeout rate is 8th worst in the league. So it's a killer opportunity for the kid. If he pulls it together, you could see a slate-breaking score out of him. 8,400 is a tricky price also on FanDuel. I wish he was cheaper, but I'll be curious to see him in the top starters tool tomorrow for sure. Musgrove is a guy very cheap, 6,600, but I don't really want to tangle with the White Sox offense here either. So I don't think I'm going to be getting to him, not getting a good projection on him either.
All right, our next pair, kind of a whole lot of meh. It's because of where they're priced. We on DK, so we have Spencer Turnbull, who has allowed one home run this season. It was in his last start, but he's at 8,500. He doesn't generally allow a ton of power. He's not like Brad Keller, but usually doesn't allow too much. Adrian Hauser on the other side, just not quite putting it all together. He gets that great matchup against Detroit, but he only has double-digit fantasy performances in 3 of his 7 starts. That's not enticing at 8,000. If these guys were $1,500 to $2,000 cheaper, I'd be talking about them. Right now, there's nothing redeeming that I can see.
So what I'm hearing is I can sell you on a $5,800 Adrian Hauser on FanDuel.
Absolutely. I'd be willing to roll the dice. There's no Coors Field to pay up for, but you could get, well, but it is FanDuel. You can already get every bat you want anyway.
That's it. It's like, it's unnecessary savings, but it's most definitely there. If you need it, if you want to pay for like every expensive bat and not worry about stacking and just put together a bunch of guys you think might hit home runs, going down from the top in price, you could probably do it. I do like the opportunity a lot for Hauser, though. Just coming back to reality a little bit. Tigers are 15th in the league, so around right at league average, 179 ISO against righties, but only a 92 WRC plus, so 8% below average. What I really like is the strikeout upside, 28.2% strikeout rate against righties this year, so very good. That's the worst in the league, so very good opportunity for Hauser. 3.82 xFIP in 38 innings so far this year. Using his sinker 48% of the time, not getting a ton of whiff, but he's a 21.9% career strikeout guy. So I think we could see a good start from him here. I think we could see a good amount of upside. For that money on FanDuel, I think you can easily get to it. The price is definitely more difficult on DK. Turnbull on the other side, not a guy I really love, but I think the matchup again also is pretty good here. The Brewers, not as good as people think they are, or maybe thought they were. Maybe people have caught up to this, but just a 144 ISO against right-handed pitching, 26 overall in baseball, 75 WRC plus, a 25% below average in creating runs, 27.6% strikeout. So they're right there with the Tigers as far as being bad against right-handed pitching. Turnbull, 48.4% ground balls, only inducing 8.3% soft contact, which is a little weird for a guy who keeps the ball on the ground a lot. Gets decent whiff on his slider, 21.9% career strikeouts, 9.8% career walks. You mentioned the limiting the power, only 0.72 home run per 9, so he's definitely good in that. 20.4% strikeout this year, but bumpy 15.1% walks. So tough spot, but tough history on him, but good spot. So I think you could roll out a little bit of Turnbull. Conservative.
All right, our next 2 guys are kind of question marks. Got a couple of youngsters here, and Kyle Wright, 6,500 though, and he is facing Miami. So that is worth noting. He had 6 walks in his last start against 1 strikeout. The one before that, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. For those of you scoring at home, that's 16 walks, 12 strikeouts, 12 earned runs. Yikes. On the other side, you have Sixto Sanchez. Not really sure what to expect from him. This will be his 4th start. He has given up 3 home runs, but just 5 total runs. He has 5, 10, and 4 strikeouts, so that is 19 in his 19 innings. But it's a tough matchup against Atlanta. I think I'll have these guys at 5 to 10%, whereas the others I was waving off, these guys will actually actively make my player portfolio, but I'm not excited about it.
Yeah, I think I could maybe squeeze in a little bit more Sixto than that if he's at a reasonable price on DraftKings.
6,200. This is kind of the counterpoint of the Hauser comment. It was if they were $2,000 cheaper. Well, here's his version of him, $2,000 cheaper.
Yeah, so I think there's strikeout upside in the kid. He's facing the Braves, which you mentioned is not a good matchup. They're 3rd overall with a 228 ISO and a 124 WRC plus against righties. But they're a 24.9% strikeout rate. He's a strikeout pitcher, so there's some upside there. So maybe you can squeeze it to like 15, 20, and then only play like 2/3 of those and split the difference a little bit. But out of the 2, he's the guy that I would do that with. sitting 92nd percentile in his limited sample size so far in xWOBA. Allowed, like you mentioned, a little bit of hard hit, 37th percentile in hard hit rate, 44th in exit velo, 3 home runs in his 19 innings. Using his sinker 21.5% of the time, sets up a good whiff on his four-seamer and his changeup, heavy spin. So he's a pitcher I like. I like the upside. Right on the other side of things, not liking him as much. You mentioned the funny with back and forth with the strikeouts and the walks. So how that lays out in percentage was exactly 17.9% strikeouts, 17.9% walks, which is just comical. So 177 home run per 9 so far over his 15 innings, 5.44 xFIP. Decent whiff on his slider, but it's getting hit hard, and he's getting hit hard. Marlins, on the other hand, though, it's a great matchup. Their 127 ISO is second to last in baseball against righties. 91 WRC plus is actually a little higher than I expected it to be, but still 9% below average. 25.8% strikeout rate. So there's opportunity there. It's going to come down to how much he puts these guys on base unnecessarily and how much he's able to harness his stuff and hold the bats down. So, yeah, I would think 5-10% at most.
All right, next two, nothing really exciting here. Michael Walker at 9,200 on DK. That's just going to be a hard no. 69, 67, 98 pitches in his last 3 outings. Of course, he was on the injured list for 2 weeks there. So he pitched on the 2nd, the 28th, and then all the way back on August 7th. Just not interested. John Means, a little bit of interest, but the Metropolitan's much better this year on offense, and Means has allowed 2 home runs in each of his last 3 games. Now, he has allowed a total of 9 earned runs, 6 home runs. So he's generally not getting a lot of base stealers, but he's also has just 6 strikeouts. So there's your funny numbers there. 6 strikeouts, 6 home runs in his last 3 starts. Even at 6,500, I'm not that interested.
Yeah, I'm with you on Means. I is not getting much whiff on any of his pitches.
2019 All-Star, John Means.
He'll always have that. He'll always have the first half of 2019. His changeup was working, and he was an interesting pitcher for a few weeks. But that is not what's going on anymore. For his career, only 18.5% strikeouts, 1.61 home run per 9. Just not much there. So I think we can definitely pass on him, and I think we can get to some of those Mets bats. 115 WRC plus so far this year, so 15% above average against lefties. 177 ISO as a team, so a bad lefty here. I think we can definitely smash in some of those Mets, and I really like the upside for some of them. Guy like Pete Alonso, I'm getting a tremendous home run mark on Alonso for tomorrow, so I think that could be a killer spot.
All right, one other guy from the All-Star game, Dan Vogelbach. One of my favorites. He was my most picked player in last year's home run contest. He was released by the Mariners, signed by Toronto, released by Toronto after 4 at-bats. He's now with the Brewers, who cut Justin Smoke. Yeah.
I didn't catch that one.
That was a couple days ago. They did that on the 3rd.
I missed that. Okay. Yeah, I missed that in my in keeping track of the lineups. I let a site that shall not be named handle the projected lineups and the confirmed lineups for me. But I think we'll have that next year, though. Stay tuned.
Yeah. All right. LA and Texas. We've got Lance Lynn at 9,400. Andrew Haney at 8,400. Here's 2 guys I'm interested in. Haney in particular. He has been phenomenal in his last couple starts. 117 pitches in the last one. Tiny bit concerned about that, but it was 104 the one before that, 97 before that, 101 before that. But then remember, he had the quick hook from Joe Madden, 77, 87, 64, and 67. And a couple of those he was just on the move against the Mariners, and they pulled him early anyway. So he's someone I'm very, very interested in. Texas, not good. Lance Lynn kind of depends on what's going to happen with our Angels lineup. But I'm 9,400. That's the where you get a little hesitation. But he's gone 111, 110, 105, 111, 110, 109, 107, 102, 106. Pitch per dollar, even at 9,400, we're gonna get it from him. So he's definitely in the mix. These guys feel like a pair of 20%ers out of my 200% in play on DraftKings.
Yeah, I expect these guys to be very much in play and probably lingering among the top options on the top starters tool on both sides. Like both pitchers, The pricing on Lynn on FanDuel is pretty good, 8,800 over on FanDuel. So I like that price for Lance Lynn here. You mentioned it's going to come down to what's in the Angels lineup a little bit, and their overall numbers, they were actually a little bit better than I was expecting against righties. 194 ISO and a 120 WRC plus. Only strike out 21.2% of the time and draw 12% walks. Some of that had Tommy La Stella in it. I don't think I clicked away from I clicked onto the active roster there. So those might be a little bit wonky, but still a little better than I was expecting the Angels to rank out. But I do like the upside. Lynn's picked up his strikeouts the last 2 years. He put about 100 RPMs extra on his four-seamer before 20. Strikeouts went up from a 23.4% average that he was at pretty much every year to 28.1% last year, 27.2% this year. So he's pitching really well, and it's a reasonable spot, reasonable price. So I think he's definitely in play. I like Haney better, like you were saying. Pitching really well. Only 2 home runs allowed in 44 innings this year. Getting very good whiff on his four-seamer. That comes in with heavy spin. So it's a very good pitch. Getting good whiff on his curveball that he sets up with that pitch. Changeups he uses against the righties, decent whiff, but gives up it's on the curveball rather. When people make contact with that good curveball that he gets a lot of swing and miss on, they do have a 2.45 X ISO on that pitch. So a little bit dicey on the when he leaves it hanging, but that's typical of a hanging curve. Rangers, not a team I worry about doing that much to him. 137 ISO to lefties this year, 67 WRC plus. There's really no threat in that lineup other than Joey Gallo. He hits lefties well. He hits lefties for power well, but we know he strikes out a ton. Hitting 176 with a 324 on base, a 387 slug, 210 ISO still this year, but his WRC plus 15% below average. So I'm not even really worried about Gallo here. I think we can roll out a lot of Heaney.
Yeah, I say that. So this is their active roster versus their raw total, but it hasn't changed that much. They've scored 144 runs total this season. That's across 40 games, so that's 3.5 per game. They have 40. Their active roster has 43 runs scored against righties.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's just what happens. So when we say they have was it 60-something WRC plus against lefties, that was their score against lefties. I'm sorry, against righties it's 70. So they're scoring 30 to 35% less than the average team. This is it's part ballpark and it's part horrible contact for their players. They're not connecting at all.
Yeah, and I mean, look, there's not much mystery in why you look at that lineup and just who's in it, and it's just not a collection of good hitters. So just on name value alone, you can recognize that with this lineup. But going down, batting average, I don't really care about, but just to use it here, nobody hitting 300 on this team, nobody with an on-base percentage over 350 on this team. Nobody slugging more than 476, which is Jose Trevino in a very limited sample size. So
Nick Solak is their cleanup hitter.
Right, exactly.
I wouldn't have named
him. Say more.
Yeah, I would have said, is he the second baseman for one of the AL Central teams, batting 8th? No, he's batting cleanup for the Rangers. There we are. Continuing along here. So moral of the story, play the pitchers in that game. Tyler Mahle is going to have to face some lefties. We know that's a huge problem for him. Home runs tend to happen a lot when he faces lefties. So that's just, it's all going to come down to what is the lineup. Alec Mills on the other side, his range of outcomes is negative. Let's see, this season, these are just his fantasy points. 2.5, negative 0.3, 23, negative 8, 13, 24, 17. That's any numbers in play with him.
It's a roller coaster.
I don't know what to do. Do you feel lucky today? Well, do you, Punk?
Yeah, that is a game of Russian roulette with that kid for sure. So not getting a good projection on him here, if that helps from my model. Not really in love with the spot for the kid. I would probably be more inclined to play Mahle despite the lefties. Overall on Mills, he is getting 49.2% ground balls, inducing 19.3% soft contact. But over 38 innings, he's got a 4.80 xFIP. Decent whiff on his changeup to both hands. It's his real one good swing and miss pitch. But overall, just not a lot there right now. I think he's going to be an okay pitcher in that keep the ball on the ground, not allow a ton of opportunity kind of mold. But I don't think he's ready yet. Reds are sitting 6th in the league with a 196 ISO and, actually a WRC plus a little below average despite the good ISO in the split. But I think they could get to this kid. Would not be really inclined to go to him. And I'll let this top stacks tool probably dictate how much I get to red stacks tomorrow. I'm curious to see what Alex thinks of them there. I get good projections on them, but be very curious what he thinks. Malley on the other side, pitching pretty well overall as far as strikeouts go. 28.5% strikeout rate this year, which is up pretty significantly from his 22.5% over his career. We always like to look for something tangible, and he did add 200 RPMs to his four-seamer before the season. So there is a very, very specific change that he made, and it makes a difference. That's something that does make a difference in how you set up your other pitches, and it's helping him get good whiff on his other pitches. So it could be a real change, could be working. But he's also walking more hitters, and he's allowing a few more home runs. Overall, 4.78 xFIP in his 30 innings. And the Cubbies sit with a 4th in the league with a 214 ISO and a 104 WRC plus against righties. So a lot of lefty power, could be pretty dangerous for him. And like you mentioned, for his career, 2.24 home run per 9 against lefties over his entire career. So that's a little bit ugly. So far this year, that's at a 165. That means 3 home runs in 68 total lefties faced this year. So we can probably look to more of the Cubs left-handed bats here than we look to Molly, I think.
The wraparound stack, Kipnis at
Always
the top. Yep, that's definitely going to be in one of our articles. I can guarantee that. All right, now we've got one good pitcher, one Chichi almost said Rodriguez, Gonzalez. You know that one. Josh actually got that one when I did the thing last year, but it's Chichi Gonzalez. I don't want to tangle with San Diego. They've made too many additions. I mean, think about this. They lose Tommy Pham, but then they gain all the the Austin Olas, the Jason Castros, the situational hitters. They're in a very nice spot to make a run here. But Mike Clevenger, 9,700 going against Colorado. We know that traditionally Colorado scores about 30% less on the road, even with the advanced metrics. They're not a great team. Coors Field boosts them into being a good team, but once they leave the park, they're not great. So I definitely am interested in Clevenger. What do you like or not like from Clevenger?
Yeah, I'm with you. We liked Lamet in this spot today, and I think it's very similar for Clevenger. I think he's got very good strikeout upside, 27.1% strikeouts for his career. This year, 20% strikeouts, but limited sample, only 5 starts, 28 innings, 10.4% walks. Again, not very worried about it. That would even out over time. He missed some starts because he was involved in that Cleveland COVID thing before they traded him. That's why they traded him, or at least part of why. Ultimately, you mentioned it, the Rockies versus righties and the Rockies on the road. Both a bad combo. I mentioned it against Lamet, and it holds true here. 72 WRC plus on the road, 77 WRC plus against righties. So they don't create runs, and they don't create runs on the road. So I really like the spot here. I think he could have a very nice start for the money. Getting a good projection on him. He's one of my top starters. 9,600 on FanDuel, I think, is a pretty reasonable price for this opportunity for the spot. A lot of win equity with the Padres. I think they're going to smash Chichi here, get ridiculous home run marks on the top, the entire top of the lineup, and pretty much the entire lineup going top to bottom. So I think they're in a killer spot. A lot of win equity for Clevenger here. So I would be stacking Padres, and I would be rolling out a lot of my Clevenger.
All right, Luke Weaver somewhat turned things around, at least from a power perspective, has allowed just one home run in his last 4 starts. On the season, he's still allowed 8 and 32 innings. I don't want to tangle with the Dodgers. On the other side, we have Walker Bueller. He has gone 71, 92, 89, 87, 79, and 56 pitches. He is 10,200. They will be pitching in Arizona. I assume the roof will be closed. I'll look at that. That's a hefty price tag. It's your tournament pivot away from Clevenger, but I don't know that it's the right move. Even what would the spread in the player popularity have to be before you'd move away from Clevenger and to Walker Bueller? 97 for Clevenger and 10-2 for Bueller.
For me, not too much.
Okay.
I do like Walker Bueller. I'm a sucker for Bueller. I think there's a ton of upside for him, but I think what you're getting at is what's his pitch count going to be and what's the risk there, which is extreme. He pitched, what did he go? 5 scoreless innings the last outing, I think, and that was coming back off of a blister issue. So I think we could get a good start from him if he gives us 6. That's what we're shooting for. And we need that, I think, for that price.
He put up 35 DK points, 11 strikeouts in 6 innings in his start before the blister. So you're absolutely correct in pointing that out.
Yeah, so that's the kind of start we're looking for if we do roll him out. It's risky, of course. We're accepting risk. But if there's a good ownership differential, it doesn't have to be super crazy for me to do it. And I'll definitely have some Bueller. The ownership differential and the size of that gulf, the size of that delta will dictate how much Bueller I'm getting to, I think. But he'll definitely be in play for me. D-backs 24th in the league, 147 ISO against right-handed pitching. 13% below average WRC plus. They're a little bit patient. They do only strike out 20.6% of the time. So it's kind of a rock versus a hard place situation. But in this case, I like Bueller's side of that. I think his talent overcomes and he puts up a pretty good strikeout start, assuming that we get a decent ratio, a decent set of pitches from him, which is, again, the big concern. Weaver, you hit it on the head. I don't want to tangle with this Dodgers lineup. I like the pitcher in general. He was pitching terribly earlier in the season. He's hopefully pulling it together. But the Dodgers are first in baseball with a 252 ISO, which is, I think, like 20 some odd points again over the next highest team. 128 WRC plus. They only strike out 19.9% of the time against righties, which is first in baseball. What's ridiculous that I noticed while I was looking at that, their BABIP against righties is 26th worst in baseball at 275. They could be much, much better than this against righties. That's crazy. So I want no part of this. I want no part of Weaver. I would be looking into Dodgers stats.
All right. And Arizona has not yet announced what they're doing with the roof. They usually do that for their entire upcoming homestands. They have not. It's going to be in the mid to upper 90s. That's a dry heat out there in Arizona. But that's also kind of the temperature range where they start to leave the roof open on some of these. It's going to be a 640 local start, so I don't want to make any guesses on this one. If I saw that the projected temperature was going to be 103 or higher, I would think they'd have it closed. I don't know at this point, so I don't want to guess on that one. But there's a nice MLB.com /DBacks /ballpark information. That is where I go to look for this, and they do a good job of updating that. Last game of the night is Seattle at San Francisco. Terry, did they use up all of the juiced baseballs? The runs have come down dramatically these last couple of games. Tonight we're seeing a nice performance by Kevin Gausman. Went 6 innings, allowed 1 run, 9 strikeouts. Zach Gallen on the other side had a rougher night, but allowed 4 runs, 6 strikeouts. So that's just 5 runs when you consider they've been averaging 11.4, second most in any stadium this season. That's a major decrease, and it actually has been for the last 3 games.
It is big decrease for sure. And again, everything we've been talking about with the park, it has to be taken as it's a small sample. So
it's slightly tongue in cheek, but damn it, there's something there, right?
Right. It sure seems like it. So whether it's the park, the ball, who knows? But I still think there is something, ultimately to that, and it'll be interesting to watch it play out next year if they make no other changes. But I think it's also today it was a case of 2 good pitchers. I think Gausman's pitching very well this year. We talked about him a little bit on multiple shows throughout the last 24 hours. Same with Gallen. So I think that's a little bit of that. Definitely not the same pitchers tomorrow. I've got LJ Newsom going, LJAY LJ. As far as I know, not related to TJTEJAY Antone from the Reds, but two fairly ridiculous names, if you ask me. I don't know. We're a little older than some of the people out there. Is this how we're spelling these names now?
And technically, it's correct.
I suppose it is phonetic. We'll get away with it. And then we've also got J Hap, who spells his name J.A. and pronounces it J, but we won't get into that. He's also on the slate. So some weird ones. But I don't really want any part of either of these pitchers. 5,900 for Newsom. I guess if you really, for some reason, needed to justify a price on FanDuel and didn't want to go to the other guy who was super cheap. He's the 28th overall prospect in the Mariners system. 18.5% strikeout over his 7 innings. Very basic looking arsenal, 92 mile an hour fastball, not much spin, 77 mile an hour curve, 85 mile an hour change, not a ton of whiff. Giants 16th in the league, 172 ISO against righties, but creating runs 10% better than average against them. Only 22% strikeout, so I prefer the offense on that side of the game. And I don't like the Mariners offense, but I don't really like much about Logan Webb going up against them either. So I think that might be a double stay away. He limits the power. He keeps the ball on the ground to some degree, 48.1% this year, allowing a 333 BABIP against. So he's gotten a little bit unlucky, but bad quality contact. When he leaves it up in the zone, people tend to hit it hard. Mariners exactly league average in WRC plus against righties at 100 and a 156 ISO. Not a ton to love about that lineup, but again, just not a pitcher I really want much of.
Yeah, and LJ Newsom has taken his time moving up through the ranks here. He's 23, he's almost 24. He has been in the Mariners right out of high school, but he has, 60 innings at low A ball. He has 130 innings at A ball. He has 240 innings at high A ball. What I'm not saying there is the words double A and triple A. He has 48 double A innings and 10 triple A innings. He has been in the lowest of the low minor leagues levels, and his numbers there have just been mediocre at best, between a 7 and an 8 strikeout per 9. That's not good. He should, if he was going to be a high-end prospect, that should be between 8.5 and even 10 in some of his stuff. It's not.
Yeah, when you're only in the I was looking on a little further down the page in the percentage, but it's the exact same numbers that we're talking about. When you're in A ball, striking out 20.9% of hitters, you are not a high-end pitcher. So I don't think we need any of him really in our lives.
Even for the price, even with the ballpark, I just don't know.
Can't justify it. Forget about that. Go to that other cheap guy that we were talking about earlier. Rewind, listen again, and go to him.
Yeah, if you want a 5-10% guy, I'm totally good with that. A little differentiation, no problem. I'd probably equate him right about with Chichi Gonzalez. Easier matchup, but not a more talented pitcher.
Yeah. And not a comp you really want.
All right, there we are. Hey, we managed to do this without mentioning any sponsor stuff, but our time is running out on the Awesemo Sleeper promo. That's going to end on Thursday when NFL starts. You get 1 month of Awesemo NFL DFS content at 30% off with the promo code Sleeper. We'll also toss in the season-long best ball draft guide. And I know a lot of you guys are still doing it into the weekend. Most of the sites kind of cut off their best balls with the Thursday night game, but you still get 3 days because we got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before those are going to run out. And hey, we're tossing it in there for free. And then if you go sign up at the FFPC, your same email, we'll make sure you get a $35 credit over there. So we're kind of paying you to do this. But with that, gamers, hopefully the tech sounded good, or at least passable. Good luck.